Call the meeting to order. If you would, if you have a device that might be making noise, would you please silence it? And we'd open the meeting, if you can stand, if able, and welcome Michael A. Jones, Major, U.S. Army retired. Major Mike Jones enlisted in the military in 1980. He rose through the ranks, starting out as a private, attended officer candidate school in Fort Benning, Georgia, and was commissioned as a second lieutenant. He held various positions, including platoon leader, company commander, battle captain, and brigade adjutant. Mike retired as a major. He was called up for many state emergencies, including the Lake Carrie tornado disaster in 1989. In 2002 and 2003, he was deployed to Europe for Operation Enduring Freedom with Task Force Keystone in Germany and supported the 109th Infantry serving in Bosnia. Mike retired in 2004 and continues to serve as a volunteer for the Pennsylvania Committee of Employer Support of the Guard and Reserve. He is also the president of the 109th Infantry Association, which keeps alive the legacy of the 109th and provides scholarships to students of veterans in the 109th Infantry. Additionally, the organization provides the support to the Pennsylvania Wounded Warriors Program, the Gino Murley Center, St. Francis Commons, the Carbondale Memorial Day Committee, and the Shade Tree Commission to maintain the Veterans Park in Carbondale. Mike recently retired as an application engineer with Signode, located in South Canaan, where he was employed for nearly 41 years. Major Jones resides with his wife Brenda in Blakely. They have 5 children and 5 grandchildren. Major Jones has the following awards: Meritorious Service Medal, Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Award, Global War on Terror Medal, Overseas Service Medal, and numerous others. Major, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would, we're just going to take a moment and take a picture with Major and allow him to continue with some other obligations that he might have today.
Thanks, set me up where you need me to be. Tim is there. Oh, wait. One, yeah, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate the honor. Sure. Thank you again. Take care.
Have the reading and approval of minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opportunity for the public to address the board on agenda items only. Seeing none, moving to resolutions. Motion to approve Resolution 26-0063.
This is approving the current payables. Be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County is hereby approve the following payables. Lackawanna County's General Fund, numbers of 397-183, 397-703, inclusive, totaling $2,200,622.43. The county's electronic fund transfers, including all payroll accounts, totaling $11,733,350.15. Adopted at a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County held on March 4th, 2026. Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a motion to approve Resolution 260063?
Motion.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution approved. Resolution 26-0056.
So entering into an agreement for GED classes at the county prison. Be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County is hereby entering into an agreement for GED classes at the Lackawanna County Prison with Outreach Center for Community Services, 431 North 7th Avenue in Scranton. The agreement is to commence immediately and expire December 31st, 2028. Adopted at a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County held on March 4th, 2026. Mr. Chairman, here to speak about that is the Warden of the Lackawanna County Prison, Mr. Tim Betty.
Good morning, Commissioners. This legislation is an extension of the contract we currently have with Outreach to continue providing GED services at the prison until the end of 2028. Currently, just to let you know, our numbers are up. I was just checking this morning on that, and we're up to 29 individuals participating in it. It's a worthy endeavor.
Resolution to approve?
Motion.
Motion?
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Resolution 26-0058.
This is entering into an amendment to the Inmate Communications Service Agreement. Be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County is hereby entering into a Fifth Amendment with Viapath Technologies, formerly GTL Corporation, for the Lackawanna County prisons to reflect the mandated FCC regulations that go into effect April 6, 2026. Adopted a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County held on March 4th, 2026. Once again, Mr. Chairman, here is Warden Betty.
Good morning again, Commissioners. This legislation will amend the current contract between Lackawanna County and Viapath to reflect those FCC mandated changes in rates. The rates will drop significantly. Phone calls will go from 21 cents a minute to 2 cents a minute, and video visitation will go from 25 cents a minute to 2 cents a minute. The intent of the amendment to the contract is to reflect those mandated rate changes.
Have a motion to approve 26-0058.
Motion.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Passed. Resolution 26-0057.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, it's my understanding that solicitor is going to add some comments about tabling this resolution due to some language missing from the contract. Attorney Walker?
That's correct, Commissioners. We ask that we table this resolution for the future, hopefully next public meeting. It's nothing major. I'm just going back and forth with an employee of the engineering firm that's handling the contract on some language, so.
Do you have a motion to table?
Yeah, motion.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is tabled. Resolution 26-0059.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is approving the Office of Drug and Alcohol Treatment Agreements. Be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County is hereby approve the Lackawanna Susquehanna Office of Drug and Alcohol Programs fiscal year 2025 through 26 agreements for the inpatient and outpatient treatment services. Adopted a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County held on March 4th, 2026. Mr. Chairman, here to speak upon that is the Deputy Director of Drug and Alcohol, Mr. Robert Demek.
Good morning, Commissioners. I was here today to request your support for provider contracts from January 1, 26 through June 30th, 26. There's no initial or ongoing cost to the county as the funds are state and federal. Do you have any questions, Commissioners?
No.
Motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Resolution
you, Commissioners.
26-0060.
This is accepting a quote from Presidio. Be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County is hereby accept the quote from Presidio for IT hardware for the Lackawanna County Prison. Adopted a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County held on March 4th, 2026. Mr. Chairman, here to speak upon that is the Deputy Director of Information Technology, Ms. Kim Kelly.
Hi, good morning, Commissioners. Our proposal is to partner with the prison management team to strengthen security and ensure safe access to sensitive county data by implementing the Palo Alto private browser supported by an annual contract. The functionality works like a regular browser, like Chrome or Edge, but with the enterprise-grade security baked in, so the county don't have to worry about what the users click on. With your approval, we could begin to roll it out in the prison, and then eventually we could expand it to the other county areas for better security and consistency.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Resolution 26-0062.
This is awarding the Arts and Cultural Grants. Be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County is hereby award the Arts and Cultural America 250 PA grants to the municipalities as per the attached. Adopted a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County held on March 4th, 2026. Mr. Chairman, here to speak upon that is our Director of Arts and Culture, Ms. Mari McGuigan.
Good morning, everyone. So as we all know, this year is America's birthday. So we're here to celebrate the great history of the United States. And Pennsylvania has a big program that's been rolled out across the state. So each county got to choose some projects that they wanted to do. And because we have the luxury of having some funding and we want to support all of our municipalities, we put out a grant. This is just a one-time grant. Every municipality could apply for $1,000 to decide what they wanted to do. So I'm really happy to report we got 31. And there's a lot of, I can't read them all, but we'll be promoting them. But there's things like Old Forge, if we have any Old Forge people doing a cookbook for the Filetes Festival. Jessup has a big firework and carnival activities this year. So this is what we are approving today for all these municipalities to be supported.
Great, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Another question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Resolution 26-0061.
These are appointments to the Area Agency on Aging Advisory Board. Be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County is hereby appoint the following individuals to the Lackawanna County Area Agency Advisory Board with a 3-year term to commence immediately and expire December 31st, 2029. Elizabeth McGuigan of Clark Summit and Martin Futta of Dalton. Adopted a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County held on March 4th, 2024. Mr. Chairman.
Do you have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Thank you, Elizabeth and Martin, for your service. Resolution 26-0064.
These are appointments to the Workforce Development Board. Be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County is hereby appoint the following individuals to the Workforce Development Board representing the business sector with a term to commence January 21st, 2026 and end December 31st, 2029. Patrick Facconi, CEO and partner of Simplex Industries. Matthew Maloney, co-owner of Cal-Mal Vending. Jamie Ryan, CPA Vice President and Relationship Manager of PNC Bank. Be it further resolved that the Board of Commissioners is hereby appoint the following individual to the Workforce Development Board with a term to commence January 21st, 2026 and continue through December 31st, 2029, representing the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation, Blind and Visual Services. Kelly O., Vocational Rehabilitation Supervisor from the Pennsylvania Department of Labor and Industry. Adopted a regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Lackawanna County held on March 4th, 2026. Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We have now the opportunity for the public to address the board.
Joan Hodawan at Scranton. Is Dave Bolzoni here?
He is in the House.
He is in the house. Well, I want to thank Mr. Bolzoni for the digital budget book for 2026, or as we call him, Honest Dave. God, you have to go through 415 pages, but I'll get there. I got to say this about Dave. I keep hearing how Mayor Cognetti is being given credit for getting Scranton out of its distressed status. That's simply not true. Let me tell you who got us out of distressed status. It was a combination of the guidance from PEL and Dave Bolzoni's leadership when he worked in Scranton City Hall. So thank you, Dave. Number two. I've gone to many meetings here, and I listened to Tyler Technology give more than one PowerPoint presentation. During one of those presentations, Tyler said they were finding properties that had never been put on the tax rolls. Now that reassessment is done, I want you county commissioners to get a list of all those names. And I want a wall of shame in the lobby of this building. I want their names and how much money they owe. I want them hit up for delinquent taxes, penalties, and interest. I always thought that tax evasion was a crime. Where's the district attorney when you need him? So let us give credit to those people. I bet you money that they aren't poor people. They're people who knew someone, because most of the poor people are poor because they've been paying their taxes. So every week that I come here, I'm going to ask you, where's that list of names? And Jeff, I want it in the paper too, right next to the tax liens. Okay. And the third thing, I go onto the county's website and I click on government. and then I buzz on over to boards and authorities. Now, there are dozens of boards and authorities, and I know you've done a lot of work soliciting people to volunteer. I only really follow two of them. One is the county's library board, of which I am a former member, and the other one is the literacy committee, because literacy is, well, it's damn important. So I looked at the information on the literacy committee's page, and it told me that the meetings were going to be hybrid. They're going to be the third Thursday of every month at 5:30 right here. January, I stood outside the doors downstairs. Everything's locked, everything's dark, couldn't get into the building. February, doors are locked. I got a guard to come to the door, and I said, I'm here for a meeting. He said, lady, there's nobody here but us chickens. Now, I don't know what's going on, but March is coming up, and I will be blankety blanked if that happens a third time. I sent an email to an email address they had in January, mid-January. I'm still waiting for a response. This literacy committee was stood up in April of 2023. It's going to be 3 years, okay? January 15th in the paper, you see how well we did on the PSSA scores in literacy. The districts with the lowest average percent proficient of or above for 2025 in English, language arts, and math were Scranton with 21.9% and Carbondale with 20.2%. I remember I went to one of their first meetings and they talked how they were going to test the inmates in the prison for dyslexia. Before he left, I asked the warden how many inmates were tested, and he said, to my knowledge, 0. I want to know, are they even meeting, or they just prefer to do it by virtual only? Library board is having the same problems. They have their own website, but the website on the county still lists me as a member, lists Bill Zacher as a member, has the wrong dates and the wrong times for their meetings. If you're going to have web pages for those people, make them do it right. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will look into that for you. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jessica McGuigan, and I'm a licensed counselor here in this community. I specialize in relational therapy, which is a clinical way of saying that I spend my days looking at how our relationships and our lived experiences inside of them shape who we become and how we move through the world. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. This work has given me one of the greatest gifts of my life, which is hearing in profound and sometimes really shattering detail how different people experience the same world. It's also given me one non-negotiable principle, and it's one that I return to in my office and one that I'm returning to today. We must watch what people do, not just what they say. I learned that lesson most recently from someone that I love really deeply, someone whose politics have shifted really far from mine. And it's been painful and clarifying in equal measure. I understand from where they stand what they've lived, why certain words resonate with them. Faith, family, safety. Those words are meant to land, and they do. But love has required me to look past language and to ask a harder question. What do the actions actually tell us? ICE as an agency has a stated mandate, and I can acknowledge that. But we cannot speak about that mandate without also acknowledging what is actually happening. We have watched legal permanent residents detained. We have watched American citizens wrongfully deported. And we have watched people who posed no threat, who had families and jobs and roots in this country, removed. The words say one thing, and the actions say another. As a clinician, I am trained to name that gap. And as a human being, I cannot ignore it. Why this ordinance matters? It's not because it dismantles anything. It's because of what it says, which is that our county employees will not be instruments of that gap. Our neighbors will not live in fear of the people who are paid to serve them. As a counselor, I see every day what that fear does to people, to families, to children, to bodies. Chronic fear is not abstract. It lives in people's nervous systems, in their sleep, in whether they want to walk their kids to school. This ordinance won't fix everything, but it will say you are safe here and you matter. We've been handed a framework recently in our world that allows no nuance. Agree or be an enemy, align or be destroyed. And I am exhausted by it. Because what it actually does on all sides is to flatten everyone into caricatures. People being targeted lose their humanity, but so do the people doing the targeting. Nobody gets to be fully human in this model, and the people with the least power always pay the highest price when that happens. I don't believe that that's the only option that we have. I'm not here to publicly flog anyone, including Mr. Welby. I know you to be a kind and thoughtful person before any of this, and I'm choosing to hold on to that, even as I come here today to try and make an argument for this. Those two things can coexist. They have to. Or we lose something essential about how we treat each other, and we become exactly what we are fighting against. So now, Commissioner Welby, I will speak directly to you. I'm asking you to be the critical thinker that I believe you to be, to look at the words and the actions, to ask yourself who is the most vulnerable if you stay quiet and who is protected if you act. The people who showed up and voted for you are women, queer, working class, and immigrants, many of whom cannot afford to keep their heads down. And even if they once could, they no longer have that option. This is a moment that asks something real of you, not because it's easy, but because it's right. Because your neighbors and your constituents are asking you, and yes, even you, Commissioner Chermak, to see us, to hear us, to remember our full humanity, and to vote yes on the Protect Our Neighbors ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sarah Balmer from Covington Township, and I'm back again today to ask you to vote in favor of the Protect Our Neighbors Act. And in case you don't remember us from last time, I brought a picture of my daughter. Please don't forget us. Since the last time I spoke here, many families have reached out to share their own stories and stories of their loved ones living in fear. One such story involves a member of our international adoption community. One of our members' daughters, adopted as an infant, is away at a southern university. An overly enthusiastic office worker at the school thought she had found a discrepancy in this girl's immigration paperwork and reported her to ICE. And guess what? ICE gladly came right down to the school and detained her. Imagine her parents across the country, horrified, frantic, desperate to get plane tickets and hire attorneys to fly out to assist their daughter. After many hours in detention and exorbitant lawyer fees, she was released from custody. This story is just one of many involving members of our international adoptee community. And my husband and I reassured each other that, don't worry, Lily Mae will be safe. She plans to attend the University of Scranton. Of course, the very next day we read the story in the University of Scranton's newspaper, giving details of the woman who was boxed in by ICE agents. They demanded her papers and threatened to break her windows if she didn't comply. When she tried to reach for her phone to record what was happening, the agents grabbed their weapons and told her not to move. Then one of the agents said, "I think we have the wrong person," And another replied, "They all look the same. We have to take this one." This is insane. This is not okay. So, tonight, while Lily Mae, my daughter, is excitedly shopping for her senior prom dress, her father and I will be home in the garage wiring her car with video cameras. Welcome to America. Please do something. Please, I'm begging you to take action. History is watching. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Alejandra Marroquin. I've been a resident of Lackawanna County for 20 years. I'm here to express my support for the Protect Our Neighbors ordinance. Since early 2025, we have seen the Department of Homeland Security terrorize our neighbors, cities, and states. We have seen cities like Chicago and Minnesota. Here in Lackawanna County, residents are concerned about the presence of immigration officials detaining people without due process. I've seen the consequences of family separation and people I love and care about being fearful. Unlike what was said at earlier meetings, the arrests that have taken place are not people who have committed crimes. On the contrary, immigration officials have arrested immigrants on their way to work, picking up their children from school, taking friends and family to appointments. These are errands that many of us, and perhaps you do as well. The difference is that you don't have to carry your passport or your birth certificate to prove your right to be here. Northeast Pennsylvania was built by people who come here from all over the world, speaking Italian, Polish, German, and Slovak, and so many other languages. Imagine if back then officials walked through the streets arresting people simply because they spoke a different language. What would our neighborhoods look like today? Who would it be without the generations of immigrants who raped this region? There has never been a single right way to come to the United States. Immigration laws have changed again and again throughout our history. That inconsistency is not a failure of policy, not a failure of the people who are searching for safety, stability, and hope. Immigrants and refugees should never be treated as political pawns. Many did not choose the dangerous circumstances they fled. We only have to listen to the news to understand what they're escaping. They are human beings. They are families. They are people who enrich our communities. This is not about party lines. This is about humanity. And history teaches us what happens when humanity is ignored. On January 27, we marked the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, a solemn reminder of a tragedy that might have been prevented if more leaders had acted with moral courage instead of fear or indifference. Today, you have an opportunity to show that courage. You have the chance to learn from the past rather than repeat it. Unlike many refugees and immigrants, you are not powerless. We are not without voice. You have the ability and the responsibility to stand for compassion, dignity, and justice. So today, I am asking you to choose courage, to choose community, and to choose to stand on the right side of history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
My name is Father John Civilon. I'm a Maryknoll priest teaching at the University of Scranton in the Department of Criminal Justice, Cybersecurity, and Sociology. I was not born and raised in the city of Scranton, but I was born and raised in a city very, very similar to Scranton in terms of its history, industry, and diversity. I was born and raised in Butte, Montana, a mining city, the mining city of Montana. Like Scranton, the mines of Butte offered a huge number of immigrants coming from various parts of the world an opportunity to thrive and raise their families to new levels of economic life. The mines of Butte, like the mines of Scranton, created a mining culture that was built upon a mosaic or tapestry of diverse cultures from around the world. I believe each one of you commissioners, together with many in this room, are where we are at today and have the education and wherewithal that we do have, because those towns welcomed our ancestors to them and allowed them to build and provide for us a future, the future we live. What this proposal is asking for is nothing that is very special. It is simply asking that the same protections that our ancestors were provided by the Constitution should be provided to the migrants of today who are coming, just like ours did, to look for a better life. And like our ancestors, they will contribute to the fostering of a better economy and continue to build a rich mosaic of cultures that will enrich us all. And remember the saying of the miners, underground, we are all brothers and sisters.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Cyrus Olson. I'm now coming on my 20 years anniversary of moving to Scranton, Pennsylvania from Oxford, England, where I was studying at the University of Oxford. And I moved here from that diverse culture and have felt welcomed ever since, and walked the streets of Scranton, owning a house once on the hill, living in Green Ridge and now in Pine Brook area, where I still walk to work to the University of Scranton, and also take students to Africa on a regular basis, to Uganda. So my work has been one of permission to do international work in the area and to participate as an educator and accompaniment with various folks throughout the region. And I just want to speak briefly on behalf of the Protect Our Neighbors Act, really on behalf also of many of my neighbors presently in Pine Brook who are now afraid to play basketball in the streets and who stay in their homes and are afraid, as legitimate members of the community and in high schools and local schools are worried about what it might mean to play. And so I just want to give encouragement to us all that we can do better, and that my research right now at the university is with folks at Harvard Medical School on networks of belonging. And something that I've felt in Scranton is that I've belonged even though I'm an outsider, right, who's been here for some time now. But as you know, Scranton takes quite some time to really belong, maybe 4 decades, right? So I just would encourage us to create those networks of belonging here with one another, and meanwhile also encourage good policing in our communities, right? They're here to protect and to serve, and that's what I would like to see. But lately I've seen other kinds of policing on my streets in Scranton that I would like to avoid, and create a sense of willingness to be able to walk freely with one another and meet one another in friendship on the streets of Scranton. So thank you for your time.
Morning. It's Dennis Meserol of Scranton City. Moved here about 4 years ago. Big reason why I moved here is I saw this region of the country, specifically Northeast Pennsylvania, as a climate haven. That's because we have a pretty good security against heat indexes, a good amount of precipitation. That really models this area to be a place where we're going to see a lot of climate refugees. They move into this area. We're going to see a lot of changes in the economy, the way we could be a better breadbasket for the region, mainly as other breadbaskets around the country, excuse me, around the country start to fail due to climate instability, storms and droughts and other such things that we're experiencing more frequently. That's a big story, and a lot of the policy around land use starts right here. And data centers is on the table. It's a big topic right now. And I do see that, the county had the reassessment. We lost $1 million in revenue through nonprofit exchanges and such. But to recover tax revenue, what we really want to focus on is population growth. It's sustainable, it's long-term, we need to make this county a place people want to come to. That's not by building data centers, which drive people away. It's not by enforcing immigration in these grotesque ways, which scare people away. Like people have said before me, This county was built on immigration labor. It needs to be, recovered in the same way. Those people are coming here. That this is the place that they're going to find the opportunities. They're going to find the jobs, and we need to make it that place for them. Additionally, there's going to be wealthy Americans moving out of places like New York City into this region. We're the gateway to the Northeast, the northern Pennsylvania, southern New York State. This is the first landing spot, the first lily pad that they're going to land on their way away from hurricane-stricken environments in this country. Those population transfers into this region are something that we need to look forward to as a sustainable tax revenue. We don't want to, make this a hostile environment for them or for our immigrations from other countries as well. I think that Bill's endorsement of an independent candidate this past special election really shines a bright light. A 23.9% vote for an independent candidate based on one man's endorsement. I might be wrong if it's just his endorsement alone, but that precedent, what the voters' mandate says, is that we need a people-first agenda and policy in this area. That's about all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Good morning. My name is Phil Yeviks. I'm a resident of Scranton, and I'm here this morning to represent the Scranton Area Multi-Faith Ministerium, where I serve as the corresponding secretary. At our February meeting, we heard a presentation about the Welcoming Your Neighbors Act. We decided to draft Rabbi Daniel Swartz from Temple Hesed in Scranton to draft a statement for us, and he has done so, and we have over 60 people who have signed on to the statement, and we'll eventually be making that public with you. We decided not to speak directly to whether or not you should adopt the resolution proposed by Commissioner Gaughan, but speaking from our Jewish, Christian, and Muslim traditions, there is a moral obligation to stand with and on behalf of the immigrant and refugee populations within us. What's the best way to do that, we will leave to your prudent political judgment, but that we want to put before the community that there is a deeply founded moral obligation to stand for and on behalf of the immigrants and refugees that make their way to our area. As a resident of Scranton, I can speak personally that they are literally my neighbors. The Moifu family from the Democratic Republic of Congo, part of the local Congolese community, have been living next door to my family for almost 2 years now. I can witness personally that their work ethic, that their devotion to family is a contribution to our community, that we are lucky to have them among us. And I hope that we can stand for the other immigrant and refugees that are present in Northeast Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Will Cohen. I'm a Scranton resident and a faculty member at the University of Scranton. I'm also a parishioner at South Scranton St. Teresa of Calcutta parish within the Diocese of Scranton. I'd like to begin by reading a statement of another Scranton resident and Lackawanna County resident, obviously, Deacon Ed Schoner, who asked me to read his statement into the public record. And this was addressed and sent by email to Lackawanna County Commissioners William Gaughan, Chris Chermak, and Thomas Welby. I'm writing, writes Deacon Ed Schoner, to comment on the proposed ordinance welcoming migrants and immigrants into our community. This is an important moral issue. Pope Leo XIV has emphasized the obligation to recognize Christ in migrants, stating that, quote, "In every rejected migrant, it is Christ himself who knocks at the door of the community," end quote. The United States Conference of Catholic Bishops have described their concern about fear, family separation, and access to churches, schools, and hospitals, while also acknowledging that governments have a legitimate role in regulating immigration. In a special message on immigration approved in November 2025, the bishop stated that they are disturbed by a climate of fear surrounding immigration enforcement and said they oppose, quote, indiscriminate mass deportation of people, end quote. The bishops emphasized that enforcement actions should respect human dignity, family unity, and due process, while also acknowledging that governments have a legitimate role in regulating borders and enforcing laws. My personal opinion, closes Deacon Ed Schoner, is that the proposed ordinance aims to strike that balance in a thoughtful and humane way. To Deacon Ed's words, I would just like to add a couple of additional points that are drawn from Catholic social teaching that demonstrate why, from the perspective of that tradition, the Protect Our Neighbors Act is the correct moral response to our present situation. People are human beings before they're citizens. That's a staple principle of Catholic social teaching. That means the rights they have to be treated with dignity, to have a life of security and safety, and to remain united with their family are not rights that we as the United States confer on them, but rights that God has conferred, and that we as a country, if we're to consider ourselves a godly country, are obligated to honor. Godliness isn't found in ungodly policies that spew out people who've built lives and families here, people for whom this is home and who pose no threat to anyone. The Protect Our Neighbors Act does not diminish our community's capacity to protect itself from actually dangerous people. On the contrary, it ensures that local law enforcement remains focused on violent criminals rather than nonviolent immigrants. If some criminals are among an immigrant, undocumented population, those criminals can be pursued just as vigorously with the Protect Our Neighbors Act. What the Act does diminish, to the extent possible for a local county government, is the evil of deporting people who live here peacefully and respectfully. And deportation is identified by the Catholic Church as an intrinsic evil. Pope St. John Paul II reaffirmed this in 1993. Meanwhile, Pope Pius XII, already in 1952, stated that the right of people to migrate is founded in the very nature of land. Indiscriminate deportation is an evil, and immigration is a fundamental human right. That's according to the moral framework that Catholic teaching has consistently held. Sovereign nations do have a right to regulate their borders, but not by denying vulnerable people their God-given rights to migrate, and not by violating non-citizens' basic human rights by deporting them either. According to the dictates of the moral law, immigrants who've come here and built lives here belong here. The Protect Our Neighbors Act recognizes this, and we have a moral duty to support it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Judy Quinlan. I'm from Jefferson Township.
Excuse me, Judy, if you would just pull the microphone down just a tiny bit.
Oh, you can't hear?
That would help also with the TV taping.
Oh, okay.
Please. Thank you.
Again, hello, everyone. I remember the Welbys from the Hill section when we lived there. Born in Green Ridge, so Irish background. And when I listen to everyone talk about our area, I know only too well that at one time, all of our communities were separate, both to keep the culture the way it was and the churches the way it was. But there was no big push for unity among nationalities at all. No big push at all. People were separate. You don't be dating Protestants because, you might marry a Protestant and, oh my God, the world will come to an end. Well, because that's the nature of humanity. That's sometimes the way we are, actually the way we are. That's it. I'd like to disavow humanity, but that's the way we are. The prime example is what's happened in Germany, what they did to the Jewish population. If that doesn't say inhumanity to man, I don't know what it is. But the current situation looks like the beginning of the inhumanity to man again. And as you all know from history, that if people don't stand up and say, enough is enough, something much worse is going to happen. You can't hide your head. You can't be frightened. You stand up and you say, enough is enough. And yes, perhaps in the votes, we'll be able to take back the Congress. But I don't know that, and you don't know that. You've got to stand up and say, enough is enough, because humanity is flawed. And about these people, these ICE agents who are approaching local police officers, local districts of police officers, and say, we want to authorize you as an ICE agent. Are you reading this? Do you know that? Of course you do. Come and be an ICE agent. We'll authorize you for 2 years. What can you do? Hey, anything you want to people, because we do it. Wouldn't you just love that in your community? Wouldn't you? And my question is, what are they offering these people in these small police departments? What are they offering them to join? Is it just the power to do whatever they want? And will that power, it's only supposed to last for 2 years, the authorization to be an ICE agent? Or do they get to stay forever and get their friends to join? Hey, and they're guys. Guys like to do what they like to do. Am I wrong on that? So, we begin with the protect our neighbors, because here's the law of humanity that we have learned and has been in my school on the wall for years. It says, first they came for, I did nothing. Then they came for, and I did nothing. And now they're coming for me. And who is there to help me? Keep it in mind, everybody. Keep it in mind. Nobody's rights are sacred. Once we give up somebody's rights. You got that? The Nazis didn't stop with the Jews. They went after all kinds of people who dissented and people who were sick and had mental problems. They went after everybody. It's alive and well in the United States of America. Can I tell you? In the past 6 months, what's going to happen in the future? Be alert, be smart. After they put the people in the detention centers and they get those people gone, I wonder who'll be next. Who goes next in those warehouses? What's wrong with you? Well, get going, get in there. Think about it. Humanity is flawed. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Hello, my name is Julie Schumacher-Cohen, and I've been a resident of Scranton for 16 years, and I'm here again to check on the status of the Protect Our Neighbors Act and to ask specifically what steps have been taken to advance it since the last meeting. I know there have been various questions about why a county would need such an ordinance, and I want to share just a few reasons about why it's important from my perspective. First, it matters when public leaders defend people's human dignity and set a tone of welcome and safety for all residents. This past weekend, a friend shared a story with me about a local Latino immigrant family and their experience at a Scranton retail store. As they were going about their shopping, a man screamed at the mom, calling her an illegal, and that he's going to call ICE on her. He then tried to fight her husband, who stepped back as their middle school son got scared and started screaming for his dad to get away, afraid that the man could have had a gun. Imagine the fear of this child seeing his parents harassed in this way. This same man was originally yelling at a different Latina woman in the same store. This is the kind of racial profiling, bigotry, and hatred that has been unleashed in our country and our communities, such that Latino families are now being harassed in our city. While this family did not feel comfortable coming to tell their story here today, they wanted it to be shared in hopes that no one else has to experience that kind of unjust treatment in our city. Second, this ordinance seeks to limit proactive collaboration with ICE at a time when we see various efforts to do the opposite. In recent weeks, we've seen reports of facilities being bought in nearby Berks County and Schuylkill County to be turned into detention centers, with the latter one in Tremont, Pennsylvania, housing as many as 7,500 detainees, This could become the largest detention facility in the Northeast United States and in the country. Given that ICE officers have quotas, how is this not going to impact our county? Bishop Cahill, the U.S. Catholic bishop who leads their migration committee, said, quote, "The thought of holding thousands of families in massive warehouses should challenge the conscience of every American." In addition, we know that local police departments have been approached to enter into proactive agreements with ICE. The Protect Our Neighbors Act sends a different message, an important message regionally, of upholding constitutional and human rights of all residents regardless of their immigration status, and it seeks to ensure public safety by leaving federal immigration enforcement to the federal government and maintaining trust between local government and their communities. Lastly, this act upholds the values that have characterized Scranton and Lackawanna County as a place of welcome to immigrants for more than a century. It is being considered now during a month when we remember the many local Irish Americans, and by extension all those industrial-era European immigrants who came to Lackawanna County to work in the coal mines and restart their lives here. I've heard at various points a kind of persistent myth that all those immigrants of the past always came the right way, and all the people being targeted by ICE came the wrong way. That is not accurate. First of all, ICE has arrested or detained people with green cards and with asylum cases pending. In other words, immigrants with documentation. But also, it's wrong to think that every immigrant of old had all of their papers in place. A few years ago, I came across a piece in the Day in History 100 Years Ago column of the Scranton Times-Tribune. It was titled 1,500 Minors to Seek Citizenship, and it detailed how these non-citizen immigrant minors wanted to become U.S. citizens. An official from their mining company would write a letter for them, and they could simply go down to the U.S. court in Scranton to deliver their naturalization paperwork. There was nothing about detaining them, harassing them, interrogating them, racially profiling them, or threatening to deport them. Can we imagine such a scenario today at a time when there are barely any pathways to citizenship? In fact, very frequently people from our area who check into their immigration appointments with ICE to try to do the right thing and keep their immigration process moving forward are arrested on the spot and detained. Yet just as they were then, so too now, immigrants are an integral part of the Pennsylvania and U.S. economy. A recent report by the Cato Institute found that immigrants, both undocumented and documented, generated a $14.5 trillion fiscal surplus for U.S. governments from 1994 to 2023. Immigrants pay more taxes, work at much higher rates, and receive fewer government benefits than the average American. A federal policy of indiscriminate mass deportations is an affront to the contributions immigrants have long made. In contrast, the Protect Our Neighbors Act asserts our values as a community welcome to immigrants 100 years ago and today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sister Donna Corba, IHM sister, a resident of Scranton. Thank you, everyone, for being here. You may have, if you've been reading the Scranton Times, you would have recognized that my congregation, the leadership team of my congregation, has published 3 times this week a statement in support of our immigrant and refugee neighbors. I did read this statement the day it came out a few meetings ago. But as an IHM sister, every day I find a quote and send it out to our sisters. March is Women's History Month. And the quote for today is by scientist Marie Curie. And it says, nothing, and she said, nothing in this life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. In today's Scranton paper, in 1933, FDR said, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Another one of our parishioners from St. Teresa of Calcutta parish was taken last Thursday. And his mom is a personal friend of mine and an associate with our congregation. She is fearful. What is holding her together is the quote of Jesus' words, "Be not afraid, I am with you. Be not afraid, I am with you." I ask all of us to go into our hearts as I did a few weeks ago. And most of us here are probably believers. in God, in Allah, whatever name we give the divine creator. And I truly believe, I was on a webinar yesterday with theologian Elizabeth Johnson, and she says, if we had a different God, we'd be a different people. In other words, if our image of God was different, perhaps we would be different people. And I ask all of us, when we leave this meeting, sometime this week, to go deep into our hearts and to ask that question, what kind of God do I believe in? Do I believe in a God of war? Do I believe in a God who believes that some people are better than others? Or do I believe in a God of love? Because if I truly believe in a God of love, then I would be a different person. We would be different people. I ask us all, okay, God gave us brains, and we're very smart people, but to take some time apart from the technology and the noise and the discussions and the debates, and to go into our hearts and ask that question, who is the God that I believe in? I believe in a God of love. My congregation believes in a God of love. And I ask all of us to go and to walk together. I ask you very humbly, very sincerely, to take another look at the Protect Our Neighbors ordinance. And I beg you to go into your hearts as well as into your brains as you discuss this. And may we walk in love with all of our neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jenny Gonzalez. I am a long-term Scranton resident. My family has been living in Lackawanna County for over 3 decades, and I stand here in front of you because I have real concern for my loved ones, for myself, as I mentioned before, for my daughter, because of what we look like and what our names sound like, and because we are Spanish speakers at home. And because of that, I do want to follow up on the Protect Our Neighbor Act that was introduced a month ago, and I would like to know when this proposal will officially make it to the Commissioner's agenda to be voted on. Not only is this the morally right thing to do to protect the integrity and rights of all of our residents, but it also preserves public safety, which requires the community's trust in our local elected officials. We are witnessing $170 billion of our taxpayer funds that are being diverted from essential needs such as affordable housing, healthcare, and childcare, issues that I have been struggling myself with as someone who has a master's degree and has a profession, and even then I struggle with these issues. But yet our tax funds are being diverted to fuel aggressive enforcement programs like 287G agreements. These partnerships effectively deputize local police to act as federal agents, often leading to racial profiling, community harassment, and the cruel separations of families. By offering local departments upgraded technology and vehicles as incentives to meet cruel federal quotas, this administration is compromising community trust for the sake of mass deportation agendas. Unfortunately, the Dixon City Police Department is just one example of how local law enforcement agencies are willing to destroy its public's trust and create a humanitarian crisis when, not if, when immigrant victims and witnesses of crimes refuse to report crime or refuse to cooperate with law enforcement out of fear that local law enforcement officers might accuse them of looking or sounding undocumented. This harassment won't stop at police departments. It will seep into every local agency that lacks a clear policy on protecting people's privacy from ICE overreach. So it's important to move this act forward to proactively put in place a county policy that protects all Lackawanna residents' privacy, due process, and constitutional rights. This is not only about protecting immigrants and refugees in our county. This is about protecting our safety and ensuring economic mobility for all in our county.
Lackawanna County takes immense pride in the immigrant heritage that shaped our economic, social, and cultural landscape. In fact, if not for the migration of the last 3 decades, our population and economic decline would be far more severe in this region. We need immigrants and refugees to establish roots in northeastern Pennsylvania to continue diversifying our local history, culture, and heritage, which ultimately enriches our social and economic fabric in northeastern Pennsylvania. Protecting and welcoming immigrants is both a moral duty and an economic necessity for Lackawanna County. Immigrants are key to reversing our workforce shortages and reversing Pennsylvania's demographic decline. According to the American Immigration Coalition and Pennsylvania Immigration Coalition, the state economy is dependent on immigrants as workers, taxpayers, consumers, and entrepreneurs. Roughly 1 in 10 workers in Pennsylvania are immigrants, both documented and undocumented. 67,000 immigrant entrepreneurs, both documented and undocumented, were job creators, generating $2 billion in income for Pennsylvania in 2024. Undocumented immigrants in particular helped Pennsylvania save $6.4 billion in productivity loss in gross domestic product through their workforce participation in various sectors, including construction, agriculture, and manufacturing. Immigrants, irrespective of their immigration status in Pennsylvania, had a spending power of almost $36 billion and paid $13.6 billion in local, state, and federal taxes in Pennsylvania in 2024. Without a growing immigrant workforce, the state faces a multi-billion-dollar revenue shortfall driven by labor shortages, declining population, and rising costs. This economic downturn would shrink the tax base and drain city and county funds, putting high-priority public services at risk. So, to secure Lackawanna County's future, I please urge you to please put the Protect Our Neighbors Act on your agenda and please vote on it. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. My name is Teresa Ripley. I know many of you in here, and I appreciate your opinion, and I would like you to, for a few minutes, be open to my opinion. I respect your opinions, and I hear you. I haven't heard from one single person the word legal. Legal is a very important term, and legal should be all immigrants should be legal. Things that we do in this country should be done legally. And sometimes while we don't agree with what's legal, we have to respect the rule of law, whether it is, whether we agree with it or not. We can't just go in and do what we want. It's not an anarchist state. We're a nation of laws. We're also a nation of borders, and I'm a descendant of immigrants. My grandfather was an immigrant, and we came up from nothing and created a life in this country. And I respect everybody that comes to this country legally and to have an opportunity to make a life for themselves and for their family and for their future generations. From what I can see, the last prior administration broke the laws and gave 15 to 20 million people from all over the world permission to just cross the borders and come into our country. And many of them were good people. Many of them were not. But the key was they were not vetted. Like my grandfather was vetted, and I'm sure your grandfathers were vetted. Every single one of you sitting in chairs, your grandparents were vetted. And at some point, there had to be a legal process to become a citizen of the United States. Now, I don't agree with abusing people and whatever, making a show of it, or whatever these people are saying is going on. It should be done humanely. It has to be done legally. It has to be done legally. There are immigration courts, and they can go through the process of the immigration courts get paperwork, or if they have paperwork. If I was illegal right now, or if I was legal but I was an immigrant, right now, the way things are, I would keep my papers on my person because of the environment right now. The Japanese were interned during the war, and that was not right. They were citizens, and they were put in concentration camps, and that was wrong. But I'm talking about this administration was left with a huge problem that had to be fixed. And in the processes of fixing it, there is probably a lot of disagreement on how it should be done. But the one thing I can say is that ICE should be respected, that City of Scranton police should be respected, all law enforcement should be respected. What happened out in Minnesota, the law enforcement was told not to protect the ICE or not to control crowds that didn't agree with what was going on. Because you don't agree, you don't have a right to kick in tail lights and spit in people's faces, especially law enforcement officers that are doing their job. The City of Scranton police officers could just control crowds that might be objecting. And while ICE just simply does their job, if ICE does their job and the police do their job of managing the crowds in the city, perhaps people wouldn't have been killed and mayhem and anarchy, which is created by certain people. We need to follow the rules of law. I particularly have a love for the South American Hispanic because of their Christian roots, and I kind of feel a very strongness to that, and I have a very great love for that, for South American people. I disagree with the Catholic Church's. The Catholic Church has said to treat immigrants humanely. I'm Roman Catholic. I was born and raised Roman Catholic. They did not say legal immigrants. They just said immigrants. The Holy Father has a wall around his palace or whatever it is. We have borders. All nations have borders.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else to address the board?
Hi.
Good morning.
My name is Elizabeth Aguilar. I am a resident of Lackawanna County for almost 30 years. I am a daughter of immigrants. I was born in California, luckily. My parents immigrated to this country illegally, as some people might, want to call the term. They fled a civil war from their country in El Salvador. And when they came here, they lived in fear. Before I was born, they worked under the radar. And, by the time I was a child, as a citizen of the United States, I didn't really understand anything but fear. And the fear that I understood were the fear that my parents, that I inherited from them. They would go to work, they would take us to church, they would drive us to school, go to the park. Every time we saw ICE, it was just fear. And growing up with that fear was the worst thing. It was just like a robbery of my childhood. But mostly I feared for my parents, because as a citizen of the United States, I knew that the only problem that would happen if they got taken away from me is that I would end up in foster care. Luckily, my parents had the opportunity in the 80s. A president granted them asylum. And, it's something that it's always been an issue in the United States with politics is immigration. And if we could have that pathway for immigrants now, it could be a better opportunity for their children, for themselves. Anyways, flash forward to Pennsylvania. We moved to Pennsylvania in the late 1990s. My mother only came here with a first grade education, and she only did the best she could do, which is skilled labor. She worked in a freezer for the entirety of her time living here in Scranton, Pennsylvania. My dad did what he does best, build houses, which is something he learned in his country. None of them have any kind of education. Luckily, this country was able to provide them the opportunity for us, their children, to have an education. And I am thankful for the sacrifice that my parents have made, to travel from El Salvador to California. Even though it was not the right way, they didn't have the means. A lot of these immigrants don't have the means, otherwise they would do it the right way. Everybody just wants to come here. They want to work. They want to go to church. They want to send their kids to school. They want an opportunity that the United States has always said that they could provide to all immigrants. We're the land of the free, melting pot, and it's just amazing that I came, from California to Pennsylvania as a young child. I still had fears, of ICE, but not as much. My mom would go to work with her resident alien card. She wasn't technically a citizen yet, but, she had permission to work. And every day she would always come home saying that ICE came to raid her work, and half of the people didn't show up. Because they were fearful of being detained. And it's not fair. It's not fair to hear stories like that when parents are just trying to make a living. They're just trying to do things the right way. My parents have not committed any crimes. In 2005, my dad was lucky enough to finally become a United States citizen. And the first thing he did was vote. And he was so excited to do that. In 2024, my mother, with no education, she could barely read and write, was lucky enough, and I am so proud of her that she became a United States citizen. And the next thing she wants to do is vote. She just asked me this morning when the next election is. And, and that's what makes me so sad, is just that immigrants just want to come here. They want to work. They may not have the means to go through the process like my parents were lucky enough to be able to do. But the one thing that I always remembered as a child is that fear, the fear of ICE, and, inheritedly, like the fear of law enforcement. And as a young adult, when I first became a mother, I realized, law enforcement, we shouldn't be afraid of them. They're here to protect and serve. And despite the fact that as a child, I was fearful of ICE, I didn't have to inherently have that same fear with law enforcement. And what is happening now in our neighborhood is our children are in fear of not just ICE, but of law enforcement. And it shouldn't be that way. Children should not be afraid to go to school, and people should not be afraid to go to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to address the board? Commissioner Gaughan?
Thank you. Before I get into my comments, I just want to wish the family of Anne Marie Regan great sorrow. Anne Marie Regan, as some of you may know, was a trailblazer in women's politics in Lackawanna County, a lifelong resident of the Bellevue section of Scranton, and she recently passed away. She was the first woman elected to a Lackawanna County row office, and then she was re-elected a then record 4 times, serving as recorder of deeds from 1974 to 1994 when she decided to retire. So I just wanted to send my condolences to her family. I want to thank everybody for getting up and speaking again today on the Protect Our Neighbors Ordinance. It has been, as some of you noted, exactly 1 month since I introduced the Protect Our Neighbors Ordinance. In that time, as all of you have seen, we've had packed public meetings, we've heard emotional, powerful testimony from residents. We have received formal guidance from Governor Shapiro's administration reinforcing the need for clear local procedures regarding immigration enforcement. Some of you got up this morning and asked what the status was. At 8:30 this morning, the commissioners received a legal memorandum from the Solicitor's Office analyzing the proposed Protect Our Neighbors ordinance. The memo is labeled as confidential, which I don't really agree with. I question why a policy analysis affecting the public should be treated as confidential when the policy itself will be and has been debated publicly. I disagree with the suggestion that counties lack authority to establish policies governing how our own resources are used. The memo also, in my brief review, has an extremely aggressive section that raises the specter of criminal prosecution for local officials. I am not aware currently of a single elected official in this country who has ever been criminally prosecuted simply for letting local policy boundaries, or setting local policy boundaries on ICE cooperation. And I don't believe that legal risk should stop policy debate, and I believe even the solicitor acknowledges that ICE cooperation is voluntary under federal law. I do think that this memo is important, but I don't agree that it should be confidential. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion that the board waive attorney-client privilege for the legal memo provided to the commissioners this morning regarding the Protect Our Neighbors ordinance, so the public can review the legal analysis that is informing this discussion.
I would advise that we have internal discussions on that rather than take up a vote on that particular issue now.
I've made the motion.
Hearing no second, dies for lack of a second.
Okay. We have additional cause for urgency, and it's why I've been pushing this ordinance over the last month. Yesterday, we learned through reporting from the Scranton Times that the Dixon City Police Department entered into what's known as a 287G agreement with ICE, granting local officers authority to act in a limited federal immigration enforcement capacity before it was paused after public scrutiny, I should say, from the Scranton Times, and now apparently it's in limbo. That agreement reportedly authorized trained local officers to arrest individuals on suspected immigration violations and transfer them to ICE custody. Let me be clear. Under the current leadership and operational posture of ICE, I am unequivocally opposed to any police department in Lackawanna County entangling itself in federal civil immigration enforcement. Also with the understanding that the commissioners have no jurisdiction over any police department in Lackawanna County, but it's just my personal opinion and personal feeling that this is outrageous. ICE today, as many of you mentioned this morning and over the last month, is not operating as a neutral public safety agency. It has become politicized, aggressive, and in many cases reckless in its tactics. Families have testified in this very room over the last month and even this morning about masked agents in residential neighborhoods throughout Lackawanna County. The governor of this Commonwealth has issued advisories because federal agents are now appearing in healthcare and social service settings. A little over a week ago, I sent the advisory from the governor to all of the commissioners and our solicitor staff here, because I've said this before, county government is essentially one big social service agency. And now ICE is operating as if they can just walk into these facilities without asking for permission. I've heard this before, well, it hasn't happened yet, but what's to say that it won't happen? We've seen how extreme these people are. Are we supposed to believe that expanding local participation in the corrupt apparatus that is ICE somehow makes us safer? It does not. It erodes trust between local law enforcement and the communities that they serve. It turns municipal police officers, in the case of Dixon City, into extensions of a federal civil enforcement system that is currently operating in ways that many residents, including myself, find deeply alarming. And it places local taxpayers and local governments in the middle of federal political battles. The Dixon City episode is not an isolated procedural issue. It is proof of exactly why the Protect Our Neighbors ordinance is necessary, and it's why all of these people keep showing up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm sure most of you are taking time off of work, I've heard from some of you, showing up here and passionately speaking on this issue. The thing that concerns me about Dixon City is, somebody asked what they're offering, a resident asked what they're offering, $100,000 for vehicles, $7,500, I think, sign-on bonus, money for training. They're throwing money at them. I don't know if any other borough police department in Lackawanna County has been approached, but if they have, I would urge the mayors and the council presidents to walk the other way. This is bad news. Again, we have no jurisdiction over it, but I would hope to God that they would listen to the people in this community that have spoken so passionately over the last month and do the right thing. Don't enter into a deal with the devil. You might get a new police car, but you will not have the respect of the people who live here in this community. The ordinance, again, does not obstruct federal law enforcement. It does not prevent ICE from enforcing federal immigration law. It simply draws a clear boundary. County resources and personnel will not be used for federal civil immigration enforcement absent a valid judicial warrant signed by a judge. That's constitutional, that's responsible, and that's consistent with long-established principles of federalism. Last meeting, we heard the suggestion from Commissioner Welby that sometimes it's best to keep your mouth shut and your head down. With respect to him, that philosophy may keep you comfortable, but it does not keep residents protected. It may be good advice for surviving middle school, but I don't believe it's an actual governing philosophy. And I mean this when I say it. The people that got up this morning, I give you a lot of credit. I know how hard it is to get up at that podium and speak in front of people, especially with some of the stories that you told. And we need to listen to you, because this is a small subsection of what's happening throughout Lackawanna County. These are the people that are showing up at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday. How many other people would show up if they had the opportunity, or if they weren't scared? Leadership is not about laying low and hoping the controversy passes. It's about setting clear policy so frontline employees are not left guessing when federal agents show up at a facility, shelter, or a county office. And I'll go back to the point I've made over the last month and where this all began. Our 911 director, an ICE agent reached out to him informally. Hey, do you have information on this person? We don't have a policy to deal with that. We need a policy to deal with that. So I would hope that over the course of the next 2 weeks before the next commissioners meeting, that the confidential memo will be released publicly so that people can discuss it and take a look at it and be informed on it. I don't believe that we should hide behind confidentiality. I think that this is such a public issue that people deserve to know what the concerns are from the solicitor's office and what the issues are. Today, the last month, have made it abundantly clear. If we do not establish clear county policy, as other counties are doing, I just read an article this morning, Allegheny County is considering this a very similar ordinance. These decisions will be made elsewhere, quietly and without public input, and that is unacceptable. So I can continue to stand firmly in support of the Protect Our Neighbors ordinance, and I urge this board and my colleagues respectfully to move it forward without further delay and put it on the agenda. Thank you. And put it on the agenda so we can discuss it, and if there are issues legally that we can make changes to it, and I've been in a legislative role now for over 10 years. I've introduced things before. They change. You make additions. You take things out. I'm open to suggestions, but I think it has to be done in the light of day. Switching tracks for a moment on data centers, which is another issue that is facing every resident in Lackawanna County. I sent a letter to the governor on February 17th calling for a 3-year moratorium on data center development. I have not gotten a response yet, but there have been some positive developments. Senator Rosemary Brown has expressed her support for a 3-year moratorium. State Representative Kyle Donahue and State Representative Kyle Mullins have expressed support. A state senator out of southern Pennsylvania, Katie Muth, is going to propose a bill calling for a 3-year moratorium, and I think we all need to do everything we can to get on board with that because it's so important. I would like to briefly, though, address an issue that has become one of the most substantial and sustained concerns raised by members of the public, and in some of these meetings that I've been at, throughout Lackawanna County in terms of data centers, and that is air quality impacts associated with data centers and their backup generator emissions. Recent reporting from other states has illustrated very real public health concerns tied to large clusters of diesel-powered generators, the kind that can release very fine particles and pollutants into the air that can contribute to asthma, breathing problems, heart issues, and long-term health risks. I cite a study that was done from the Community and Environmental Defense Services, and this is reporting out of Ohio, that they found a single data center could pose negative health risks for people living at least a little bit over half a mile away, sometimes further. This gentleman in the report said that risks increase when a home is near multiple data centers. If anybody's been paying attention to what's going on in the Up Valley, I mean, there's going to, if everything goes through, we're talking dozens and dozens of data centers. This report raises serious red flags about that. Air pollution risks come from data centers emitting nitrogen dioxide and tiny inhalable particles that can harm people's lungs. According to the National Institutes of Health, the tiny inhalable particles cause between 100,000 to 200,000 premature deaths each year. So, the facilities we're talking about in Lackawanna County operate dozens, sometimes hundreds, of large combustion engines for backup power. And when they test them or run them simultaneously, the impact isn't theoretical, it's cumulative. And when you place those facilities near neighborhoods, schools, parks, or senior housing, that cumulative impact matters. I just recently received a copy of an air quality ordinance that was pushed by a group of concerned residents in Archibald, and it was recently passed in Archibald. And that ordinance represents a local step beyond state minimums, requiring cumulative air impact modeling, independent environmental review, operational safeguards for generator testing, and financial assurances for long-term impacts. Importantly, it's my understanding that the Federal Clean Air Act does not prevent local governments from adopting additional protections so long as they do not directly conflict with federal standards. States and local governments across the country are permitted, according to my understanding, to adopt air quality standards that are more protective than federal and state minimums. And in Pennsylvania, the Air Pollution Control Act specifically allows for local air pollution control programs that meet or exceed state and federal requirements, provided that they are consistent with state law. In other words, we are not automatically limited to doing the bare minimum. If public health demands stronger safeguards, which in this case I believe it does, the law allows us to explore that, which brings me to my specific questions for our solicitor. And Solicitor Walker, I'll give you a copy of this ordinance if you could please review it. Once you review the ordinance, I would like you to provide a written legal opinion on whether Lackawanna County may adopt a countywide air quality ordinance that is more protective than current state and federal minimum standards, including cumulative impact analysis and emission safeguards consistent with both state law and the Clean Air Act. Can we require developers of large facilities with multiple combustion-based generators to provide cumulative air impact studies to the county planning department before approval? Are we legally permitted to regulate or limit how and when large diesel generators are tested or operated to reduce concentrated air impacts? Do we have the authority to establish enhanced setbacks or protections for sensitive areas like schools, childcare facilities, hospitals, and residential neighborhoods? And I would ask that you work directly with our planning director, Mary Liz Donato, to evaluate model ordinance language and return to this board with a formal review and recommendation. That leads to an additional and very serious concern. One of the proposed data center developments directly abuts a Lackawanna County Housing Authority property in German. So I would also ask you, Solicitor Walker, given that this development, the data center development, specifically Project Gravity, directly borders a county housing authority development, does that proximity provide the county with additional standing, authority, or legal basis to intervene, comment formally, or assert protections on behalf of those residents who live within the housing authority? Can the county enter the matter in a more direct way because a county housing authority property is affected? Do we have any fiduciary or statutory responsibility to ensure that county-affiliated housing developments are not subjected to avoidable environmental or air quality impacts? If a large-scale industrial facility is being placed immediately adjacent to housing supported by this county, I believe we have an obligation to fully understand what legal tools are available to us to join in the fight with the other residents in Archibald against data center development. Again, in closing, this is not about being anti-development. This is about being pro-health. It's not about waiting until after facilities are built and residents are complaining about air quality and noise to ask whether we could have done more. Economic development should not mean asking families to accept lower air quality as the cost of progress. I believe we owe residents our due diligence, we owe them our transparency, and we owe them the confidence that before anything is approved, any massive industrial infrastructure is approved, we as county commissioners have examined every lawful tool available to protect their air, their neighborhoods, and their children. Again, I've been researching this and reading these reports, and it is very, very concerning, especially, it's not like we're talking about one data center development. We're talking about dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens, and it's extremely concerning. So I look forward to a written legal review and a public discussion on how we possibly can move forward in that respect. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Chermak?
Good morning, everyone. And I do want to thank everybody for coming and for their getting up and speaking. I especially want to thank Major Jones for being here today and leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I want to thank him for his service and for all our service members and active service members, retired veterans, all. Thank you very much for your service. And we received a pretty lengthy memorandum this morning, which I haven't had a chance to really even dive into myself. So, we are looking forward to sitting with our solicitors, with the other commissioners, all three commissioners, and discuss this process. It has to be done right the first time as far as I'm concerned, and we need to look at what we can legally do, what we legally can't do, and what kind of a ordinance or whatever we can do, we will discuss it and figure that out. And I know, just to remind people that are wondering when they can start their appeal process, I know a lot of the tax bills have gone out. I know some people have some concerns with what their taxes are reflecting in their assessment. So as April 1st, that will be on the website. You can get your appeal form and file for your first appeal hearing. So look for that on April 1st, and we can get that process started. Couple good things. I would like to welcome back Joe Dorenzo as our communications director. I don't know if he's still in the room, but Joe is back, and look forward to working with him and getting information out. Another person that I'm excited to work with is our new economic development director, Thom Carlucci. Tom's in the back room. He's going to do a great job. Looking forward to working with him. See Lackawanna County grow. And there's two other individuals. We don't always do this. We don't always recognize them because we get into so many other things. But we have a person that works down in our Veterans Affairs office, Anissa Akalunas. She's been I think this week is her 20th year serving in the Veterans Affairs office. So I want to thank Anissa and everybody that works in our Veterans Affairs office for all the great work that they do. They take really good care of our veterans here in Lackawanna County and out in other counties that don't have the good folks and the talent that we have, so they do a great job. And another remarkable person here that I guess is retiring on Friday. In our tax claim office, we have someone named Lynn Kubeski. Lynn started here 48 years ago in the office, in the tax claim office. She started right out of high school in the CETA program, so she's retiring as of Friday. So I want to thank Lynn for her many years of service. She did a great job. The wealth of knowledge that is going to be going with her is going to be missed, but I wish her all the best in her future, and just thank you for so many years of service. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, congratulations to those two employees in our Veterans Affairs office. is one of the finest, most efficient governor affairs offices with the per capita work that they do across the Commonwealth. They're one of the leading Veterans Affairs offices in the Commonwealth, and they, when you go in there, if you do not reside in Lackawanna County, it's not an issue. If you need help, they're there to help you. And Major Tim Booth is here in the doorway. Oop, he's ducking out of the doorway. But Major, thank you, and you and your team for all that you do. And also, I want to join Commissioner Gaughan and Chermak in extending prayers and blessings and condolences to Anne Marie Regan's family. She certainly is a standout leader in our community and will always be remembered for the path that she plowed through to make forward motion for so many people in our community, particularly for women. It's greatly appreciated. As Commissioner Chermak said about the reassessments, appeals on reassessments, you have to wait until April 1st by state law. The window for appeals doesn't open until April 1st. And the office and everybody here in the county is here to help you if you do need help. The communications department has been working on putting together some pieces to help you understand and help you go through the reassessment process should you need that. And we are here to help you with that. Also want to thank everyone that was here today. Your comments and your passion is felt. It's not an easy decision. I worked for almost 14 years in the House of Representatives, and there is time in passing legislation that we have to go through processes, that we have to go through. The legislation first enters into the before it even gets to the committee. The group that writes the language does it together and presents it to a committee, and that committee then it's changed, it possibly changed, and then moves to the floor of the House or Senate and moves on. Rarely does it take less than 6 months, but we're going to be hopefully a lot quicker than that. I was concerned about our not being able to come to an agreement with that. There are issues with the ordinance as it was submitted that are serious, and we do have to look at them. We can't just say, hey, we're not going to worry about that, and maybe it won't happen. But some of the opinions that we have received back from both justice and law enforcement community are issues regarding potential criminal prosecution to employees, duplicating existing laws, creating conflicts, lack enforceability in it due to absent penalties, and it could expose the county should some of those decisions, rather the language in that, be held to be not in compliance with federal law. It could expose us to legal challenges, financial burdens, and operational inefficiencies. And we are, I believe, today going to meet with council and discuss this and hopefully work it out. I was ready to make a motion to adopt the governor's guidelines as our guidelines, but we may be able to establish our own starting today. And I know you've heard it and you want to hear an answer to it, but it's difficult for you to hear, I understand, but we're moving pretty quickly, even though a month is dragging on forever for many of you. But I appreciate the concerns that you expressed and the stories that you shared. Hopefully, when we meet again, we'll have something here to discuss. And I believe that is all. Meeting adjourned. Thank you for being here.
Motion to adjourn.